I'm sweating like a hooker in church.
Uncharted 2 Among Thieves was developed by Naughty Dog and released for the PlayStation 3 in 2009, year I left school. It's the second game in the Uncharted series, and you may be thinking,
well, yeah, there's a big fat 2 right there.
And ma'am, you'd be right, but I feel that some games have ruined that way of logical thinking. This game offers everything. A lovable rogue in the driver's seat, treasure, betrayal, love, and some other cool stuff. Uncharted 2 has a lot to offer, and it's a game I'm glad I played. And it's the second game that I've played in the series after the first, because I'm playing them in order, like a normal person. So this is my review of Uncharted 2 Among Thieves as a new player, 11 years after its release. It's pretty good. We start off with our boy Nathan Drake, thief, explorer extraordinaire, waking up on a train.
That's my blood. That's my blood. It's a lot of my blood.
Snap back to reality. Oh, there goes gravity as he realises the train is hanging from a cliff. Cue climbing tutorial! Once Nathan reaches his stop and disembarks the train, he begins to have flashbacks of what brought him to this point. There he is, Indiana Drake, enjoying some suds on the beach, when out pops a British fellow named Harry Flynn. Flynn was searching for Drake to give him a proposition.
I'm gonna steal the Declaration of Independence.
No, not that proposition. Flynn wants to break into the Istanbul Palace Museum. Nathan's like,
no way, dude, you're insane.
So Flynn's like,
nah mate, it's fine, it's totally worth it.
In walks Chloe Fraser, the best driver in the business who doesn't even drive once in this game. Anyway, the three of them sit down and discuss how they'll steal an oil lamp that once belonged to Marco Polo, and will point them in the direction of his lost fleet, screwing over the guy that hired them. The promised day arrives. Nathan and Flynn enter the museum via the sewers and make their way past the guards, sometimes using tranquilizer darts in the process because Nathan's compass is suddenly pointing tomorrow and he's like, no guns! And there it is, the lamp. But whoops! Sorry Marco. The real treasure is inside the lamp and is a map to Shambhala. Great, they got what they came for, so off they...
Betrayal.
God damn it, Flynn, you limey bastard! It's okay though, because after being caught by the guards and sent to prison, Nathan gets a visit from Sully and Chloe, who let you out to go after Flynn and his boss Lazarevich, thus kicking off the rip-roaring adventure that is Uncharted 2 Among Thieves. Now, with all the Uncharted and, well, Naughty Dog games, story is the main focus of this game. It's a very cinematic game with a lot of cutscenes, though I am glad there are no black bars to give it that cinematic feel. The cutscenes and story is really what drives this game. And what I think the best part about it is the incredibly well-written characters. My lord, the characters in Uncharted 2 are so well written. They're some of the best written characters I've ever come across in a game. You can clearly see that that is where all of the focus has gone for this game. It's gone into the characters to make them lovable, hateable, and they really shine through. Each has a unique personality. And to get this story across, it all comes down to having excellent visuals. It was originally released for the PlayStation 3, but I played the PlayStation 4 version, the Nathan Drake collection, which was done by Bluepoint Games, and it looks very good. Facial animation and motion capture. All of the faces are exaggerated, which brings forward all the emotions the characters are feeling. It gives all the characters most of their charm. And when seeing all these different facial expressions that they pull, it really reminds me of, say, like Saturday morning cartoons, or just, I guess, old cartoons in general. You know, sometimes their eyebrows will be like up through their head. I mean, it's not quite that exaggerated in Uncharted, but you get the idea, right? And motion capture gives all these characters more realistic and believable movement, apart from when you're jumping huge gaps as Nathan. And environments are designed in a way that's fun to move around and also believable. Though we know all these ancient mechanisms don't exist in real life, right? It's good to see some areas like when Lazarevich is pretty much destroying a city and you see all the rubble around everywhere, and it looks great. I mean, not for the people that live in the city, but you can always tell when you're about to face enemies when going into a new area because all of the cover is so obvious and just dotted about everywhere. You know that you're going to be facing enemies then. Though I do appreciate when climbing through an area, there's a lot of opportunities that give you panoramic shots of the environment. It just shows you great distances when you're high up. And they look amazing. Even though you can't go and explore them, they still look great. But it still does have that kind of look but don't touch vibe to it, which was one of the biggest complaints of the Order 1886 that I had, which you can check out my video on that by clicking the card at the top there. Voice acting in this game, some of the best I've ever heard. Nolan North is a pretty big name in the games industry in terms of voicing, and he is such an incredible talent. In fact, all of the voice casts of this game have incredible talent, but you can tell that all of the cast that they've picked for this game, they know exactly what they're doing, and they bring these characters to life. Music is a big part of any game, but aside from the main theme, there's no real standout tracks for me here, which isn't a complaint. Music is used, much like in a movie, as a mood setter, and the soundtrack to Uncharted 2 does that job perfectly. I don't like to talk about music too much because that is my least knowledgeable area, but it's always something that needs to be touched upon.
It sounds like video games are your least knowledgeable area.
Now to the gameplay. Now, as mentioned in my Assassin's Creed Black Flag review, card up there, I'm terrible at stealth. Stealth is an option here to pick off 1 or 2 enemies at the start of a fight to make it 0.5% easier, but it's a choice nonetheless. And aside from the museum section at the beginning, there's no fail state for being seen. Stealth is basically just crouching behind an enemy, sneaking up to them and pressing square just to knock their block off. And I said it makes the fight 0.5% easier because there are too many enemies. Wave after wave of enemies around every corner. I played on Explorer mode. I am not ashamed, and the number of enemies still frustrated me. It's my only major complaint of the game. It just felt like padding between the next section, with no real meaning to it. Though there is a nice selection of guns to use against all the enemies, and different guns work better in different scenarios, which makes you think more about which guns pick up and use. Though I do feel the final battle against Lazarevich feels a little bit out of place. It's good that it gives the player more to think about than just shooting at an enemy, but you haven't had to think about using the environment to help take down your enemies at any other point in the game. Though the game does teach you about the exploding sap when you first get into Shambhala. But other than that, you've just been point and shoot at people. You haven't had to use the environment. It was a little bit out of left field, but it did provide some nice switch up to the gameplay. So aside from the combat, one of the big things about the Uncharted games is the traversal and climbing. You always know where to go. It's been said by many different people about Naughty Dog's level design, but they are very good at pointing the player in the right direction. Just look for the colour yellow. Okay, that's not always true, but yellow is a big colour for them to use to tell you this is the ledge you need to climb on. They have many different ways of telling the player where to go, and Respawn actually used a lot of the same techniques in Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, which I made a video all about that, which you can see up here. And climbing feels pretty natural in this game. It's really easy to do, but also has a weight to it, you know? It's not like Assassin's Creed where you're very quickly running up buildings and jumping across everywhere. Nathan feels slightly more realistic. Although I just commended Naughty Dog for always being able to tell the player where to go, I did find there were some instances where the next ledge to climb to wasn't that clear. So sometimes I'd find Nathan would just do his own thing or would just plummet to his death. That was never fun. So there were quite a few times where I'd always hear but all of the climbing segments were the most engaging and satisfying parts to me, specifically the temples and the ice caves. The climbing and traversal is what I enjoy the most in these games, way better than the shooting. Uncharted 2 Among Thieves is a great action-adventure game. The huge talent behind some of the most lovable characters is what drives this game, because the writing is just way up there. The back and forth between Nathan and the others is one of the things I love most. Let down, in my opinion, by the repetitive gameplay of too much shooting, but it's the story and the rest of it that raises this game to greatness. I recommend this game to anyone who's a fan of any of the other Uncharted games, action-adventure in general, or those that want to get lost in a brilliantly written adventure story. Don't be put off by my disdain towards the amount of shooting. That's just my personal opinion, and I'm just some guy on the internet. Give it a spin. Have you played Uncharted 2? What's your favourite in the series? Let's discuss it down in the comments. Dig up and steal the like button and subscribe for discussions on all things gaming, past, present and future. Click the card in a second to see the wasted potential of the Order 1886 and what we should see in a sequel. And I'll see you over there. Bye bye.